Could be happening any minute. It's usually when the red line is doing what the red line is doing.
No, not yet.
Not yet. If you are there, folks, welcome, welcome. We are waiting for the official launch. It could be happening any minute. It's usually when the red line is doing what the red line is doing. Always, every time.
Yeah,
I've
we're
got
live.
it. We are live. If you are there, folks, welcome, welcome. We are live, everybody. Welcome. And let me just pop back over to you. Hi, everybody. We're going to go ahead and cut this little part out. This is Living Theosophy Gathering Circle number 3. Oh my goodness, Gary Kitchell is coming into the room. Gary's coming in when we're live. He has no idea. Stand by, ladies and gentlemen. We have esoteric astrologer Gary Kitchell is with us tonight. Gary, we are actually live on YouTube right now. Can you hear us? Look at his face. Gary, we're live. We're actually live. Gary? Okay, while he's logging in, I'm just letting all of you know that we are live on YouTube once every month, and we come in at the last Wednesday of the month. This is a place for folks to gather and join. Gary doesn't know that he's live on YouTube. I love that. So great. There he is. Hi, Gary. Hi.
Hi, guys.
Can you hear us? Thank you for coming. We are actually already on YouTube, and it's wonderful to have you here. We're here live, getting ready to start. So there's 4 of us here tonight, but we're asking you to be involved in the chat if you can, because there's lots to discuss. And this is about you.
I'll just move to YouTube then. That's fine.
No. Stay. We need you in here.
Oh,
with us.
The sun has just come out. Let me draw my blind because
okay.
My house has a northerly aspect.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. So what we're asking you to do is please participate in the chat. And what we're going to do is we have some questions tonight that we're just going to ponder and talk about. We don't have all the answers. We're all just students on the path. And we're going to go ahead and hand it back over to Lyndon, who will introduce us, and he will be the chair. And then we will be commenting to you in the chat. And we will be talking back to you as well, answering the questions as best we can. So it's wonderful to have somebody join. I've never had anybody join a meeting when we've actually been in process, but what a wonderful face to see. Coming in from Scotland, Gary Kitchell, we have Charlie Bannon and Lyndon S. Smith. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome all of these beautiful faces and you to Living Theosophy Gathering Circle number 3. Take it away, Lyndon S. Smith.
Hi, everyone. It's lovely to be here with you. We've got 3, well, there's 4 of us in total today, which I'm really pleased. So we have Anne Kelly, who is with myself, Living Theosophy, and Dee. We don't have Tapashri Ganguly because she's in India and there's a reported storm, so the internet might be an issue. But we have our esteemed friend, Charlie Bannon. If you can give a little wave, Charlie.
Hey there.
So
hi, everybody.
Charlie's worked with us before. He's the founder and director of the Noetic Centre, who specializes in counseling, psychotherapy, mental health and social work. And we have esteemed friend and fellow theosophist, amongst other things, Gary Kitchell, who's an astrologer and very experienced in various aspects that not everybody really understands fully when it comes to theosophy and astrology and how things are all linked together. So it's going to be really relaxed. We're just going to have a little chat, and we've got some exciting questions which are really difficult to answer. We've had a lot of response to the Living Theosophy and the YouTube channel, and we're delighted that you can all be here with us. But we have some questions that have come rolling in from various participants and people who have left comments in the chat. And I urge you all to click like and subscribe down below, which it helps with the algorithm for YouTube to raise our numbers and get these very important ancient teachings out. So anyway, forget all the blab. Let's just get on with it. So Charlie, Anne and Gary, welcome. I'm going to just rattle through a few of these questions, and perhaps, I don't know whether who wants to pick this first one. I'll read them out and you guys can just let me think. Maybe Anne might like this one. The question that came in from one of our viewers: who set up reincarnation and law of karma? It's a nice easy one to get the proceedings going.
Well, thank you for handing me that ever
You're welcome.
question of who set it up. Well, Gary, if you don't know what we're doing, I was going to tell you we're actually answering some questions that some folks have written in, and they're in the chat if you wanted to take a look at them. They're really kind of, I want to say, unanswerable as absolutes, but what we were going to do is just share our own thoughts and understanding at this particular time. Because as you know, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and when the student is really ready, the teacher bails out and the student is on their own. So we're all kind of on the path wherever we're at. So as far as reincarnation and karma, how did she phrase it? Who set it up? Well, I'd have to say the universe. It is the law of balance, the law of equilibrium. And as you sow, so shall you reap. And it is the law of balance. And I always think about this when I'm thinking about how we could possibly keep law and order on our planet with so many of us here, that if we were to truly understand this immutable ancient law of nature, of balance, as that what you do and what you think and what you cause, you will experience the effects. There is no getting out of that. You can't pay anybody to have your karma undone. You can't somehow skirt the issue. It's literally as you touch the stove and you get burnt. You hear that all the time. You don't ever get a chance to get around that. So if we knew that everything that we do, everything that we think, everything we've ever caused anybody to feel good and bad, we will experience as they have experienced it. And not just in just a fleeting moment of, oh, that happened, but as they experienced it in the moment. This ancient law is just in place that, as far as I understand, it is a law of nature. And it is, what she says, set up by creation, by the universe. So karma and reincarnation do go hand in hand, because there wouldn't really be any way for this to balance itself out unless there was a chance to incarnate and actually experience that. Sometimes there's karma that's paid out in the same lifetime, but from what I understand, when you do get a chance, as we come in each time, like waves come in on the beach and the sun goes up, sun goes down, you have breath going in, breath going out. We too pop in and pop out of the physical world, and not just this world either. But anyway, with these reincarnating lives, we get a chance to play everything out. No one gets away with murder. In my understanding, as I study these teachings, no one gets away with anything. Everything is balanced. So I would love to toss to Gary, nothing against you, Charlie, but Gary has done quite a bit of work on this, and I see him smiling there, about karma and reincarnation. Who set it up, Gary? What would your answer be to that?
It wasn't me. It arose. No, in theosophical terminology, it would arise from the universal mind, which we term Mahat, which is an expression of the transcendent principle, the supreme transcendent principle we refer to as Parabrahman. As you correctly state, Anne, it's a great universal law which plays an instrumental role in our spiritual journey. Theosophy informs us we are sparks of the divine, referred to as monads, and we are engaged on a long evolutionary journey to develop hitherto latent qualities through incarnation in matter. The monad does this through a mechanism we refer to as the soul, the higher self. It vibrates at too pure a frequency to come down the planes of consciousness itself. It adopts mechanisms which can function at these lower levels. And although the soul is formless, we depict it, symbolize it, as a lotus-like structure in the process of unfolding petals of knowledge, love, and sacrifice. It achieves this through the many incarnations it takes and many personalities it adopts throughout, the various cultures and civilizations of our world. Reincarnation and karma, as you state, and the law of cause and effect, that is how the soul becomes involved in matter. It ensures that the soul will become enmeshed, and ultimately through the educative process which it enables, it eventually serves towards freeing the soul, whereby it may achieve its objectives in matter on behalf of its Father in heaven, the monad, and thereby contribute to the vast evolutionary design. Very complex subject, of course, karma. My mentor, Douglas Baker, would say that even if a master could not discourse entirely accurately, bearing in mind we have planetary karma and so on, you know, as well as family, racial. It's a very, very complex subject. But
yeah, but that's a great overview, Gary and Anne. Charlie, have you got anything to add, or any from your, because we've all got slightly different viewpoints, and it's wonderful to amalgamate, bring them all together. So
yeah, just a few things come to mind. I don't think we can, not disputing anything Gary or Anne has said, but I don't think we can fully understand who set up karma, who set up reincarnation, because really we're trying to understand the infinite with something that is finite, and that is our brain. And there are certain questions we'll never know or understand the answer to. So a man called George Lavaga, who was in the Theosophical Society in Argentina back in the 1950s and ended up setting up his own organization. He said, when you try to understand the deep, deep questions, it's like trying to understand the ocean, but you have a fork and you try to scoop up some of the ocean with the fork. Most of it just drips through the prongs and you're left with traces of dampness on the fork. And you're trying to study that and examine it and understand it before the sun dries it up. And just because you can understand a little bit about dampness, you think, now I know the ocean. You don't. We have a tiny, tiny aspect of it. We know nothing about the vastness or the depth of the ocean or the life in it or the fish, the whales, the plant life. Our brain is just too small to understand these things. And my friend, Peter Panagore, who was interviewed on this channel a couple of months ago, he said when he had 2 near-death experiences. And on the first one, he saw, he can't even describe it with words. It took him 20 years before he could even find words to speak metaphorically about his experience. And he said he could see every single life that he had ever lived, but he was in a timeless space. And he didn't know if those lives were sequential, one after the other, or if they were all happening at the same time. But it's just an amazing guy to listen to and to speak to and to ask these questions to. And he says since he's come back, he says he's forgotten 99% of what he knew then. But and people say, why this? Why is there suffering? Why is there this? Why is there that? He says, I've stopped asking why because I don't know. Here in human form, there's so much that we don't know. But the one thing he said about past lives, he said when he talks to you, he says, this Peter, this body that I'm in, this is not me because I know who I am. I remember who I am. And when I looked at my past lives, they were not me either. So we might be there wondering, was I a fireman in a past life? Was I a sailor? Was I whatever? That was just part of the Maya, part of the illusion. That's something he's helped me to understand a lot more, because I used to think I am Charlie, I am a psychotherapist, I was whatever, but no.
I understand. Good way of looking at it, Charlie. We've just had in the chat, we've had one of our viewers, Glow Green, has asked the question. I know that this is, we want to react and interact with our viewers. So, and Glow Green asked the question, so Jesus doesn't forgive my sins. I'll put that out to the table. I don't know who wants to take that one. I don't know.
Well, the esoteric teaching relating to Christ and karma is that as a very advanced soul, the Christ took on a far greater share of the planetary karma than would necessarily have been required by one particular being. Theosophy informed, well, it was Leadbeater came up with a number of 63 billion monads operating through the Earth scheme. So about 1 in 9 are in incarnation now at any given time. I'm quoting here, that's not something I have looked into. I do not have the capacity to extend my consciousness to those levels. But in accordance with karma, the wisdom teachings inform us that regarding the karma of the earth, not our individual karma, the earth is a living being, and it's not simply a case of dividing the karmic pool by 63 billion, but rather those further along the path are expected to take a greater share of the karma. And so the esoteric teaching of the Christ, that, you know, we're dying for the sins of humanity, is because the Christ took on a large share of the planetary karma. But in terms of absolution, they're, you know, we each have our own karma to negotiate. It's as simple as that. We, just as we must tread the path ourselves, we must deal with our own karma. Again, getting back to what both Anne and certainly Charlie said, it's a vast subject, and Theosophy talks of the lords of karma existing on one of the cosmic planes of existence, and it's way, way beyond human conception to have an intellectual understanding of this matter. But just returning to the question, I would say no in terms of Jesus absolving us of our sins. If you want to use the word sin, again, that raises a whole other issue in terms of definition, what you mean by sin. I'm not going to go there because there are a few of us here and we've all got things to say.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's a wonderful answer, or a wonderful, not answer, response, Gary. Thank you for that, because these are the thing that I'd like to pick out from particularly what Charlie said, and also corroborated by yourselves, Anne and Gary, is that some of these constructs are so outside and so beyond our understanding that sometimes you just have to accept what's said, consider what's said, and just let it sit inside and consider what's being said. My understanding of karma, the actual word means action. And I think it's more like an echo chamber, that once something's been put into action, whether it be good or bad, and again, those are relevant terms, the repercussions are just as assured as the actual instigation of the action in the first place. And that's the whole virtuous circle. So to look at it in one's day-to-day life, if you put something polluting in a river, it will kill the fish, and that will then kill further animals in the food chain, and that goes on and on and on and on and on until it's finally worked through. That's a very crude way of looking at it. Moving on to another really interesting. Sorry, Anne, go ahead.
I
Yeah,
was just
sure.
going to say, I really wanted to hammer home what after what Gary was saying for Glow Green in this question. So Jesus doesn't forgive my sins. I really wish that we could start the teachings that are here in Theosophy, and all, as we say, the ancient teachings of all time, these ancient universal principles, Charlie, that I got that saying from him. And also Gary calls them the wisdom traditions and all that. The teachings tell us that the responsibility, the onus is on us. We have to stop looking outside of ourselves for something to come and save us. We have to take responsibility for our own everything. And we're the ones who need to work on ourselves. Nothing can do anything except for what's inside of us, because we are a part of all that is. So we must stop giving our power away. We must. So yes, these avatars have come and taught us all of these things. We tend to get lost in the convolution of human nature after the fact, but the forgiveness, it takes place much closer than somebody who, a human being that was walking around on this planet 2,000 years ago. It's right here, closer than your own breath. The responsibility is right here in the now. It is not distant. And it was beautiful when Charlie mentioned about Peter talking about the past lives taking place at the same time. There's an integration here we need to take a look at. And that's what Theosophy tells us about, is that there are hidden laws of nature. And in man, there's a much bigger picture than just what we've been understanding. So anyway, that was my thoughts on that. I just want to say thank you, Blue Green, for your question.
Can I just jump in there as well?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Coming back to Peter again, he just knows, he's not a Christian, but he knows Christianity very well, and he's able to pick out some of the banned gospels that were banned in the 3rd and 4th century for political reasons. All the ones where Jesus talks about reincarnation and where he says, you got to do this for yourself. Okay. I've just like the Buddha, he says, this is what I've found to be the way to liberation, but you got to figure it out for yourself.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not, as you say, no one's coming to save us, but they have shown us how we can save ourselves.
Yes. Amen.
So
to
it's
that.
up to us now. It's our responsibility, no one else's.
Yes. Well said.
So another interesting point that one of our viewers has raised, and I can answer this one because we've got quite a few points. So the next one was, when did it start? So this might apply to reincarnation or the law of karma, or we might take it more as a larger question. When did it start? For me, the idea of a start implies an end, and this is a very human construct again, which is what Charlie and Anne were talking about, and Gary as well just now, is that some of these constructs are so outside our understanding. Let me just put to you that there was probably never a start and never an end. Let me just put to you that this is a continuum, a spiral that goes on forever, and that might answer that question. Moving on, next point, why then do we need to reincarnate? And that's something that, Anne, you've spoken about, the necessity of this to learn and to work through our problems and our virtues and vices. Has anybody got anything else to add to that?
Yes, we're part of a greater being. It is a metaphysical aphorism that all things live within the body of a greater being. And I mentioned earlier about us being on a long evolutionary journey, but it's not just about our growth, it's about the growth of the greater being. And when there is the saying, my soul and your soul are the same, and that is perfectly correct. They are all part of the planetary consciousness. At a monadic or spiritual level, we are all part of the solar consciousness. And when we tread the path, I use the term tread the path, when we seek to effect spiritual transformation, we are not doing it for ourselves, for our ephemeral, transient personality. We are doing it for the benefit of all. And, the reason we are here is to develop previously latent spiritual qualities, but as part of a vast evolutionary design. I think everyone would agree, Theosophy is a paradigm. It's not something to be followed dogmatically, as Charlie has more than alluded to with his comments about the gentleman he's been following in terms of his near-death experiences. As we evolve, the paradigms will expand, the paradigms will grow. They are there to help us to attain transcendence. In the East, we talk about crossing the river from the shore of everyday life to that of transcendence. And the Buddhists talk of yanas or ferry boats, different methods or techniques, different paradigms. But as we evolve, the paradigms will evolve. Quantum physics is beginning to offer us information which complements the theosophical paradigm, but more than that, it can build upon it and expand upon it. And same with all the metaphysical teachings.
Yeah.
You mentioned spiraling. When the universe is in a spiral cyclic state of evolution, and nothing is static, eternal flux and eternal growth. I'm meandering a little bit and I'm conscious of the time. Either Anne or Charlie, I'm sure, can elaborate or expand upon that.
Well, I like what you said, Gary, anyway. I don't think you're meandering.
No, we don't. I like it. I just want it to be a natural, organic thing. Please don't feel that you have to edit yourself. If you're on a roll with it, baby. I think it'd just be wonderful. I wanted to say again, we are missing one of our primary members, Taps. We love you. We're thinking about you. Taps is the D channel, which I will link down below. We are in collaboration. You'll see Living Theosophy started out as just one talking head, but it's nothing unless you join together and you work together for one common goal. And that's what we're doing. So we're having these, again, these are just monthly gatherings. So people say, I want to learn more over on TikTok, on all the social media. They're saying, I want to learn more. So we want to be able to have something where somebody can come in and ask questions or just be here and hear other people that are on the path. And that's the purpose of this gathering circle. So it's Living Theosophy and the teaming together just to share these ancient teachings in a modern world. And these are very precious, beautiful souls with us tonight. So please, Gary, if you're on a roll and you're in the middle of a sentence, please feel free to continue. And it's up to you. You please carry on. And also, oh, sorry. Okay, well, Lyndon, I'll toss it back to you. But if you are watching, there's 6 of us over on YouTube. Again, we'd like to ask if you can, if you're enjoying any of the content you see here, the Theosophy for the Young, any of the presentations. Gary's just done an amazing presentation on the Grail. I had a really lovely comment come in on that video today. Charlie's been on the show before, and he's done some amazing stuff. His channel is called the Charles Bannon YouTube channel, and he does Mindfulness Mondays. You'll see that on the Living Theosophy Facebook page. You'll see that it's growing. This is all like-minded folks in a compassionate space of service to humanity, to help to end this unnecessary suffering of all beings. Lyndon, we met by the books that are actually here on the channel getting a lot of traction, which are the William Walker Atkinson books. So do scroll back and have a listen to those. They're very powerful texts. Lyndon, a dedicated student of Theosophy. We're all just exactly like you. So those of you who are watching on the YouTube channel, we're not teachers. We're just like you. We're students just like you. So please feel free to join in the chat. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you have anything you want to say, we're just here all together gathering to love on each other.
Yes, agreed. The comment that you made before, Anne, about you picked up on a point where we have taken charge of ourselves and we're responsible for our own outcome. I won't say destiny because that's a charged word, but outcome. It's almost as if by rite of passage through the long learning and the point that we are now as people, where we have been able to take stock of the physical world to an extent that we've become aware of the I within, the I consciousness, the inner person. We've begun to realize that there are different facets to each one of us. So there's the physical body, there's the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and other bodies as well. That once we've got this level of knowledge, there is no going back. It's almost trying to make a cat revert back to something it was billions of years. It just cannot do it. We have to go forward. We have to progress. We are at a very important point of our intellectual evolution, spiritual evolution, emotional evolution, to take charge of ourselves, whether it's through Theosophy, Vedanta, the Kabbalah, Sufism, or any of the great traditions. There will be one which will speak to you. And that's what we're here to discuss, is to amalgam of all these different great teachings. I'd like to move on to another point one of our viewers has asked here. They ask, what is the purpose of wiping off our memories for past lives? So I'll slightly rephrase that for the viewers. So when we're reincarnated, the mind is in the main, our memory of that life is presented to us at the point of death or shortly thereafter, as put by the Theosophical teachings. And then we enter a stage of rest, during which time, depending on what's happened in your life, we then be reincarnated. During that time, the facts and dates and all the pertinent parts of your life are removed, but there is an element which remains. So that's what this question is. And I'll just reread the question following what I've just said. What is the purpose of wiping off our memories for past lives? So that's obviously relating to a new reincarnated life. So Charlie, I think I'm drawn to you to answer or give a response to that.
As if I know the answer. I remember watching a documentary years ago. There was a boy in Lebanon, I think, he was having these terrible nightmares, and he would wake up screaming, calling out the name of a child. I forget what the child's name was. And the parents had no idea what to do with their son because he was so disturbed. But they took him to, there were two children of that name in his class in school, and they went to the families, and he said, no, they're not the kids I'm looking for. So eventually he said, the child I'm looking for lives in a certain village on a certain street in a certain place in a different part of the country. So to just, like, the parents were desperate, so they decided just to follow what the child was saying, and they went to the town, they went to the street, and he said the child lives in that house there. That they knocked on the door, and to meet these strangers, people they'd never met before, and the family welcomed them in. They heard what was going on, and there were a bunch of children playing in the garden, in the back garden. And he said, that's the child I'm looking for there. And he ran over to him and gave him a big hug. And he said, I'm sorry, I was killed. I didn't mean to leave you behind, but I was killed in a bomb blast or something like that. So as the story went on, they showed photographs of family members that this child had never seen before. And he was able to say exactly who these people were, where they lived. And he pointed out himself in a past life in a photograph and said that was me in the past life. And he was the father of this boy who, when he knew he was going to be killed in this bomb blast, his last thoughts were of his son. But it showed them on TV later as teenagers, and he was saying, sometimes I have to remind myself that this is not my son in this life. He was given out to him when he would misbehave, even though there was only a couple of years between them in the present. So I forget what your first question was about reincarnation.
So you were giving a story, you were recounting to us one of many stories about how people have recollections of, which is slightly contradictory.
Oh, yes. Why do we forget?
Yes,
is that it?
Yeah, that's
yes.
This
is my point. I think if we were to remember, it would be very confusing. This guy, say for example, they're adults now. So this guy who was his son in the past life is now kind of a friend from a different town. I think it would be very confusing. I can't answer the question, really.
That's okay. That's okay. Those are insightful. I just wanted to say one thing on what Charlie was saying. There is on Amazon Prime in the UK, at least, or it might be available somewhere else. There's a TV series called The Ghost Inside My Child. And there are many, I'd have to say there's maybe 12 at least stories, just like what he mentioned, which they actually go back and have physical proof where the parents were very big skeptics. And these children are young enough to remember. So these imaginary friends, the things we dismiss, the imaginations as children, they're coming back. Science is catching up with spirituality, and these past lives are being validated where they have to kind of settle this memory, and then the parents are open-minded enough to do so. It's called The Ghost Within My Child, Amazon Prime. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
And then ahead. Of course there are there are the great learned ones. So there are child prodigies which come forward. There are bizarre sort of like Shakespeare's in certain generations from a non-literary background, and you've got to ask where this impetus, this ability comes from. I think I would side with Charlie that I don't know. I can probably put an idea that the mind is part of the lower mind is part of the physical entity which passes and dies, but the true lesson, the deep learning, the heart learning, is like something much deeper, which stays with you and passes on and becomes part of your constitution, part of your I suppose foibles, part of your propensities, and part of your character. And this is where we're on about character building. It's why you're very good at certain things and not so good at other things. And you can perhaps look at friends or family and think, why are you struggling with this when I can do that so easily? So you might be good with money, or you might be not good with some friendships. Maybe these are lessons which have been learnt over laborious learning, time spent on previous problems, which we go back to karma coming to fruition. So has anybody, Gary, have you got anything to add to that, or Anne?
A little bit, but more augment slightly. That as Theosophy informs us, our various experiences are stored as vibrations in what are referred to as permanent atoms: physical, emotional, mental, and the spiritual ones. The spiritual ones are the most important, because when we express soul qualities whilst in incarnation, this not only serves to unfold the symbolic lotus, but we are then able to draw upon these both in the same life and in subsequent ones. And at a very advanced stage of evolution, hence I don't need to get too involved with this, the personality will remember the past lives because it will be so closely aligned to the soul. I find it very interesting what Charlie's saying, and yes, I'm sure we've all encountered a number of these examples. I do wonder if it's through perhaps not trauma, but perhaps a sudden extrication away from one's loved ones, as some sort of vibration stored at mental and emotional levels, which impinges upon the formation of the bodies and the memory in the next life. I'm speculating metaphysically, but in terms of the question, I think Anne and Charlie have said the same thing. It's difficult enough for our psyche to develop and flower just with our memories from this life to be an effective instrument of the soul, or even effective in the outer world, let alone bringing in the memories of all the previous lives. Given that these memories are not purely mental, there'll be a lot of emotional trauma, there'll be a lot of, well, quite nasty things have gone on. Just look at the history of humanity. I think it would be almost impossible for most people to deal with that.
I was going to say just one thing. It'd be like going to class and having math and science and reading and art and drama all taking place at the same time.
Yeah.
You have to be paying attention to this particular class, but sometimes you can hear it through the wall, or you can maybe have a skip day, and you can actually, because there are things that come through from past or possibly even future existences. Who knows which way time goes, but there are times that you will have a glimpse of something, and some people are more in tune with that than others. I'm not so much. I know I've met people that absolutely are positive of something that took place, and I only have glimpses. This is very much this particular incarnation. Absolutely well said, all of you. I wanted to mention really quick, Petri wanted to say hi there. He's coming, and he's a big fan, a huge fan of Joe Masipes. He loves Joe Masipe, and he was the one who sent the first question in that we've got. And we wanted to, he talked about Swedenborg and a few things. We're going to try to get to you, Petri, but welcome. He was asking about other texts to read, so we wanted to address you. And also I wanted to point out Eva, hello Eva, and wanted to welcome everybody who's watching from YouTube. We're going to do our very best to get to each and every question, and if not, send a comment and just be here if you can. Every Wednesday, the end of the month, the last Wednesday of the month, 7 p.m. London time, we have this little gathering circle, and we're still finding our feet. This is only number 3. These are the Living Theosophy and the gathering circles, and you're always welcome. So Lyndon, back to you. Thank you.
So you've got to remember that all of these questions are phenomenally big and could take a lot of study and consideration. So we're just glossing over. I think what Gary had said before about this sharp exit from one life into another, whether it be under violent circumstances or sudden circumstances, and also where the one who's passed is not allowed to pass on freely because of a yearning by those who are sympathetic to that person, such as a family member who keeps wanting to call them back emotionally. This might link with something that we might know in our modern world as ghosts, these recurrent and persistent stories. So that's certainly something to look at there. So we've got a comment here who's come in from one of our viewers. is Karthik or Kartik would like to know some of the importance of meditation. And I think we could all attest to meditation. So who would like to take that question and flesh that one out?
Charlie?
Yeah, I'd like to do that one.
Yeah, Charlie, go for it.
So on my YouTube channel, the Noetic Center Limited, I do Mindfulness Mondays meditations. They're guided meditations, but it's something. Okay, if you know your Voice of the Silence, one of the first lines is, "The mind is the great slayer of the real. Let the disciples slay the slayer." So that's meditation in a nutshell. So basically, the way I describe it is like I use the metaphor of the charioteer. So the chariot is like the physical body. It's a good means of transport, but it cannot go anywhere unless it's directed to do so. So you've got two horses that can direct the chariot. And the horses, one represents thoughts and the other represents emotions. And sometimes the horses work together, you know, if it suits them. But then you have one horse wants to go left, the other wants to go right, one wants to exercise, the other wants to rest. So they work against each other and they want to go off the path, and they're, you know, that's when turmoil happens. So often when we're suffering in life, and I do this at a professional level as well, the idea is often our thoughts and emotions take us to places that are not good for our mental health, or they create a lot of stress and anxiety. So then you've got the charioteer who is capable of directing the horses, but the horses are much more strong. They're more physically, in the metaphor, they're more physically strong than the charioteer. But the charioteer has the cleverness to learn how to train the horses. So the charioteer doesn't abuse the horses. You know, he makes sure they're fed and they're rested and they're exercised and so on. But when it comes to traveling on the path, the charioteer directs the horses. And the horse says, "I want to eat the grass over there. No, I want to drink the water in the river. No, we're staying on the path. You'll drink later on. You'll eat the grass later on." So that's what meditation is about. And there are many different forms. Mindfulness is the one I use because it's accepted in the mental health services where I work. And it has great results. It really has good results for reducing anxiety. And people have fed back to me that it's reduced anxiety by about 70%. But in my own personal experience, I had meningitis in December 2018. Yeah, I had meningitis in December of 2018. And I think I'm getting some feedback here. But anyway, I was in hospital not knowing whether I would live or die. And I was scared of the unknown. But I decided to do some mindfulness meditation anyway. And I went into a really, really deep meditation and found that charioteer within, who is myself, and realized that whether I was to live or die, I would be okay. My stress and anxiety was about leaving my family behind, the potential of that. But I realized if it's my time to go, there's nothing I can do about it. And if I survive, well, then good and well. You know, here I am, I survived. But if I was to go for myself, I came to a realization that there would be nothing to fear. And I overcame fear of death in that. That's how strong it is. It's like George Lavaga, who founded New Acropolis, who was a former theosophist himself. He said, one day we may overcome the fear of death, but now we need to overcome the fear of living. So, and a lot of that fear is caused by those metaphorical horses, thoughts and emotions who turn molehills into mountains. So meditation is about bringing it back down to the molehill. It is what it is.
Nicely put.
It is what it is.
I've just had that's
my 2 pence worth.
Really, really nice story. You've really opened up, and you know, to overcome such things as the fear of death is something that we all could work on. But when we understand the question which we were put before about, you said, where did it start? And I said, it's like a spiral and it's continual. So therefore, if you recognize that this fleshy outer shell will be discarded, the life force that drives it will be withdrawn, but you go on. then that takes away a lot of and allows you to center a little bit as well.
You mentioned the start and the end twice, Lyndon, and people might think I'm a Christian, but I'm not. It's just that Peter Panagore has understood the mysticism in Christianity so well. And he talks about one time where the disciples ask him, so where's the end? And he says, you talk about the end? That's as if you've understood the beginning.
Mm.
If you know the end, you know the beginning. If you know the beginning, you know the end.
Wonderful. So we have a question here from Petri, who Anne mentioned before, who's a great fan of Joma. Joma's one of our previous guests, and we would love to have Joma back again. So Petri's question was about how Joma's amazing artwork is inspired by the theosophical teachings. I think that's more a statement than a question. But I was going to say,
I'd like Gary, I'd like to see if he could maybe tell Petri, I hope I'm saying your name right, Petri, about he's curious about theosophical teachings and these pieces. I've got one here that I know there you go. This is one of Joma's pieces here, this is inspired by Isis Unveiled. This one is called Metatron. Anyway, these beautiful pieces that Petri's a huge fan. I don't want to say, is it Petri? Anyway, Gary, perhaps you could possibly illuminate when Joma does this and this sacred geometry that we see in the crop circles and throughout the millennia and in Joma's artwork, how that relates to the theosophical teachings, because when it comes to symbolism and myth, there's no one I know that knows better than Gary Kidgel.
And just before Gary does that, I will just interject a second and say that you can see
oh my God.
You can see
sorry. Karthik just made a donation. I'm sorry. That's the biggest donation this channel has ever gotten. I must interrupt.
No,
Karthik, that is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Karthik. You are always welcome here. That is not necessary, but that is so very welcome. Thank you, sweetheart. Please carry on, Lyndon. I apologize.
Thank you for the donation. So if you want, we urge you to look at Joma's work. So it's www.jomasipe.com, and Joma is spelt JOMASIPE.com. And Joma Sipe is an art symbolist and a visionary. And we've spent time with Joma. He's a wonderful person. So Gary, over to you.
Well, all true art would come from the level of the soul, the planes of consciousness which the soul inhabits. Talking about meditation, as well as the effects which Charlie has mentioned, and it's wonderful that he also related it to personal experience. One is facilitating a link between soul and personality. In Theosophy, we call it the Antakarana, or rainbow bridge, which as the soul grows through its personality, expressing its qualities, that bridge strengthens and widens and becomes a floodgate. Now, when one is performing art, true art, I don't mean painting by numbers or copying, then they are being inspired at this level. Now, I would humbly suggest, because I don't know Joma, but I suspect his psyche is very much furnished with theosophical and metaphysical concepts. And when one does that, one is then creating various schemata which the higher self can use, which can inspire one by. Is how symbolism works, of course. The soul talks to us through symbolism in terms of what we have experienced. And in terms of Joma's work, I believe it's a combination of his study and inspiration from the planes of the soul, where perhaps through dreams, contemplation, or sudden insights and intuition, these art forms are appearing within his psyche, coming from the higher mind to the lower mind, in simple terms, bearing in mind that the higher abstract mind is part of the soul, the lower, what we call the mental body and intellect, is part of the personality, which, as Charlie said in answer to the first question, that will only take us so far.
Mm. So to pick up on things that we've said before, that I think I mentioned this, I can't quite remember now, but I think that for our viewers and for all of us, because Gary, you've had a different path, and Charlie and myself, you need to, the very fact that you're here with us now, and this means something, and this is giving you something, is more than a cue for you to look at art, consider music, look at poetry, consider the theosophical writings, look at all the traditions of the world. It's not an exclusive process, it's for everybody, and all spokes lead to the hub. So follow your heart. This chimes with what Gary's just said, that a lot of these ideas are beyond words. So you try and explain to me a feeling, and you can't ever quite capture it in words. I think that's something along the lines of what we're trying to say, is this is a feeling which is deeper, that needs to be listened to. Feelings can only be felt, they can't be contextualized. And for me, that's where art gets, poetry does as well. The voice of the silence, light on the path, they all speak in terms which appeal to this abstract part, the heart, not the mind per se. Anne, have you got anything, or Charlie, have you got anything to add?
Well, I was just out doing some maintenance in the back, trying to make sure that everybody was included and all the questions were answered. I apologize if you heard me typing back there. I wanted to thank this message here from Petri came in again, asking about here, saying, hang on one second. Charlie, I think that might be your microphone. I wanted to see if you could, there might be a wiggling on your end. I'm suspecting it might be your mic. It might not. There's a little, it sounds like somebody's sucking through a straw, actually. I'm not sure if you can hear that.
Oh.
It might be your mic. It's okay. It's somebody's
still
mic.
going on?
It's something moving. It's okay. Not a big deal. I just wanted to see if we could stop that so we can. I also want to apologize, Karthik. I read that as $60, whatever it is. We're very grateful for it. I was very excited because we never get anything like that, no matter what the amount. So thank you so much. And I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Lyndon. Karthik, I'm sorry, Petria said that he has Isis Unveiled in PDF, and The Secret Doctrine, of course, is long. And people say, oh, have you read The Secret Doctrine? If you're going to study Theosophy, you don't have to just go into The Secret Doctrine and read it start to finish. It doesn't work that way. He'd asked about other texts. I recommended to him Light on the Path, which is available on this channel as an audiobook. You can also include the links down below where you can get free PDFs of Light on the Path. The 14 Lessons, which was my introduction to Theosophy, and Lyndon is also a big fan of that. That's on this channel as an audiobook, and there's a PDF link down below. But also Gary Kitchell has written a couple of books as well, The Inner Journey, and there's other texts. You don't have to just have the solely 19th century ones written down by Blavatsky. She did write down one of the most important collections recently of these teachings, but they date back forever. They've been around as long as time itself, and they've come through in the Kabbalah and the Alexandrian philosophers. Look for the commonalities in all the world's religions, sciences, and philosophies. Gary, I wanted to get your thoughts, and Charlie and Lyndon as well, about what we can tell Petri if he's looking to study Theosophy, but he's not ready to read The Secret Doctrine. What would you recommend? What texts?
Sorry.
I'm certainly not going to recommend my own book.
Why not?
Well, The Inner Journey, but Douglas Baker, my mentor, has a good one called The Jewel in the Lotus. The reason I say that is when you are studying metaphysics, it will help greatly if one is aware of the underlying principles, and good metaphysical teachers do this through a series of postulates, such as all things being filled with life, we live within the body of a greater being, karma, reincarnation. And when one is aware of the principles, they can then see these in the various esoteric teachings that they study, rather than trying to cram in lots and lots of information. Take a step back and look at the underlying principles. I personally like the Advaita Vedanta teachings as well, because if you can grab the essence of them, then you have a great overview in terms of any metaphysical system, including Theosophy, which is not a million miles from that anyway.
Thank
So
you.
tell us again, Gary, who was the author of the book, The Jewel in the Lotus?
Douglas Baker.
Yeah, just for so that people
also just for the Vedanta, there's one called The Essence of Vedanta by a chap called Hodgkinson. He was, I don't know if he still is, an Oxbridge academic who studied philosophy. When he came, I think he began by studying Western philosophy, but when he came across Advaita Vedanta, he realized it was metaphysically superior to any of the Western teachings. And he's written a fantastic introductory book, which manages to simplify the concepts, but which also goes deep. I would recommend that book personally.
And also for anybody who's new, don't beat yourself up for not understanding, and the secret doctrine. I mean, this is an epic work, you know, and this is cross-referenced, and it jumps from tradition to tradition, and there's footnotes. And don't beat yourself up. Don't be disheartened. The one thing I would say to any new student of Theosophy is look how far you've come. Take stock and give yourself a break, because the recognition that this is something to look at is an achievement which often goes unceremoniously past, and nobody recognizes the profound change from pre-Theosophy or Vedanta or Sufism or however you want to come to this, to the post person you will be when you start to join these dots and look at things. As I said before, you can look at all different traditions. You can look at certain ones. You can look at Theosophy. You can look at cross-reference, as Blavatsky did in her epic work, and other writings, but take stock of all and take what's only rightfully yours by virtue of understanding, and you'll know when it's right. It'll ring a chord inside. And that's when you are ready to learn. Give yourself a break, though. It is heavy stuff. Charlie or Anne, have you got anything to add? Charlie, go ahead.
I remember reading The Voice of the Silence for the first time and understanding very, very little. One thing that stuck with me was if you're going through tough times and you figure out how to get through those tough times, show others how to get through those tough times as well. That's the first thing that stayed with me. And then I read that book for 30 years and I always learn a little more and a little more and a little more. But I think what helped me was attending a course to understand universal principles. I guess you teach that at the Theosophical Society also. That might be a good place to start. Or I learned them in an organization called New Acropolis, which is also around the world. It's the same teachings that Blavatsky brought across. And the interesting thing is, like, I've only met you guys this year, and when I hear you talking, you're speaking my language. You know, it's like we've learned those same principles from different sources, but it's the same language. Like, we understand each other, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And yet some of these traditions, they are millennia, centuries apart, continents apart, eons apart. Some of these traditions have passed away and gone out of the peripheral vision of us modern people. But when you start to look at what unites and what's common between all of them, you'll start to realize that the Hindu traditions will have a Vedanta term, have a Theosophical term, will have a Kabbalistic term, will have a Christian term and an Islamic term, and they all mean the same thing. And you think, wow, small bites, small steps. Anne, have you got anything to add to that?
I just wanted to say, one, thank you all for being here. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for helping us navigate through these first few gathering circles. We really want you to know there's a place to come and you can talk to other people that are of like mind without having to join anything. You don't have to follow anybody. You don't have to pay any money. You don't have to do anything. I always say nature is the true church. You're the temple. Everything you need is right here. These texts are really an instruction manual for life. And they don't have to be any particular text in any particular order. You just follow your nose, follow your heart. If you're here for a reason. The Voice of the Silence, Petri, I'd like to say, I would start there. It's on this channel as well as an audiobook. And there'll be a link down below for a free PDF copy. It truly is a powerful text. It's tiny. Well, not tiny, it's 100 pages, but still it packs a powerful punch. It's an ancient language poem. It's like a, I don't know how to describe it. It's simply an instruction manual for humanity, and it is timeless. It isn't just created by Blavatsky and written down. It's coming through. And listen, I've always wanted to say this. All these people say, well, these don't count because they were written down by these people. Well, why does a text have to be 2,000 years old or 1,500 years old for you to pay any attention to it? These texts have been coming through to humanity for all time. And so when these have been proven as fact, not faith, they're the same things that are in the ancient texts as well. Look for the commonalities and you'll find them there. The Voice of the Silence is a great place to start. Thank you so much for all of you being here in the audience and here for our third gathering circle. I love you so, so much. So grateful for you.
Thank you, everybody. It's been wonderful to have you all. We look forward to seeing you next month.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.
And don't forget to click like and subscribe below. Sorry, Charlie.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done. Well done. Yeah, we're trying to grow the channel. We just cracked 5,000 this week, and it's coming up. And there's more happening here on the channel, not just presentations, but not that there's anything wrong with that. There's presentations that are brilliant, but there's also lots of programs. We're going to have a course that you can take. We're going to be more proactive because these teachings, again, just on the page, they're two-dimensional symbols put into application when you become them, when you live them. It is a whole new way of living, and it makes a difference for the entire planet. This is sustainability for our planet that we live in, for us as individuals to evolve into higher beings, for every living thing all over the universe. This is essential teaching. The time is now. It's time to do this. So that's what we're here for. This is completely free, and you don't have to belong to anything. There's nothing here other than just see their faces. You don't have to belong to anything. This is free because this has been coming through for humanity. So we're just students on the path. We're not teachers, and we don't have the answers. As a matter of fact, after a session like this, I realized how very little I know. Always.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you guys. Thank you for being in the audience. There's 11 people here. We've got a nice, beautiful, oh, Gian, and good to see you. Thank you, Petri. And Karthik, hope we're saying your name right. And Taps,
Yeah.
we missed you. It's the Living Theosophy and the channel. More to come in collaboration with these. So watch this space, and thank you for subscribing and liking and sharing, if you will, because the more people that find these, the better their lives will be, and the people that they are surrounded by, the better their lives will be. It's love by contagion. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
You're waiting for me to close the meeting because I've got the
Yeah,
button.
we don't want to go. We don't want to leave.
I don't want to go either, but are you waiting for me?
Did you? Hello?
Okay, I love you. I'm
No,
going to
no,
close
no.
the button.
It stopped. I was talking.
We're still live.
Are we?
Can you hear me?
Oh, we are. Yes, I can
Okay.
see us on my phone.
I'd like to.
Still live. I love you. I'm going to push the button.
Let's just close.
This is where it all falls apart.